we will get your information and then send you the link to this. Next, be reminded that over here in the chat box, if you could take a look, there's a sign-in form. So we would really like you to fill it in. Once you get your details, we can pass you information later. Now, at the end of the session, we will also have a feedback sheet. So yeah, stay tuned. I will update you. So today's flow, we will have about an hour listening to our experts in the field of IO psychology, and then followed by 20 minutes of question and answers. So let us just welcome. Again, I want to welcome all of you participants here. We have some from, of course, Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, China, and India. And, you know, our special guests here, we would really want to introduce our speakers. We're so happy to have you here. So we want to welcome Dr. Alizi Alias from International Islamic University, Malaysia. Oh, he's current. Yeah, hi. We're so happy to have you here.
Yeah, the pleasure is all mine.
Yeah, and you're a freelance consultant, organizational psychologist with more than 20 years experience in academia. We're so privileged to have you to share your knowledge with us later.
Thank you.
And also we want to introduce Dr. Lauren Chua Garcia. She's from De La Salle University. We're so happy to have you too. Yeah, she's the Vice President of External Relations and Internationalization of De La Salle University in Manila. And she also heads the Internationalization Committee in the Asia-Pacific region for the International Association of Lasallian Universities. Currently, she is the president of the UMPA, Philippine Council, and a board member of the GE4. So we really want to welcome you, and we are looking forward to hear more of your experience. And we also have our associate professor, Dr. Bustari Mungun Jaya. My apologies for that pronunciation. She's from the Universitas Bayangkara Jakarta Jaya. And she's the expert of the IO psychology field, especially in the area of organizational change and development. Yeah, she has received a variety of HRM and OD certification, both nationally and internationally. She's also the current external examiner for the Masters of Psychology, IO Psychology program at UTAR. She has published many different books, journals, book chapters, and proceedings. So we really look forward to your sharing as well. So welcome again, everybody. And looking at today's title, today's forum is the prospects in Southeast Asia. And we have three panelists here. We want to hear from them. So could we start by asking, so Dr. Alizi, I'm wondering, we're all wondering, so what drew you to the field of IO psychology?
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Lee. First of all, let me, it may not be too late for me to wish Muslim audience Ramadan Mubarak. Respected panelists, Dr. Lorraine and Dr. Ustari, and online audiences. Congratulations first to the Department of Psychology and Counseling, UTAR, for organizing the International Forum on Industrial and Organizational Psychology, or IO Psychology. I hope you can hear my voice. Is somebody trying to... Okay, I thought somebody wanted to give feedback. Okay, let me continue. Let us go back to the question, what draws me to the field of psychology? First of all, I am really surprised that during my bachelor degree at the International Islamic University Malaysia, or IIUM, I was actually majoring in Islamic studies and minoring in psychology. And just like most undergraduate psychology major, tell me if it is correct in the chat box, my first interest is either clinical psychology or counseling psychology. Who's with me in this? Tell me at the chat box. And I studied these two courses during my minor, among other courses. But after graduating with a bachelor degree in Islamic studies, I was qualified and offered to pursue a second bachelor degree, not master's, but second bachelor degree in psychology. It takes around 1 year only because I've already taken all the minor subjects, all the compulsory university subject, and I also, now my Islamic study become minor, the other way around. Only then, within that two semesters, I was exposed to personnel psychology and organizational psychology, and immediately fell in love with IO psychology. We had very good teachers and lecturers in IO psychology. And while studying my second bachelor, I was already employed as an assistant lecturer, and I was encouraged to pursue postgraduate degree in IO psychology. Now, before I continue with talking about my master, I realized that I am interested in the general area of applied social psychology. Can you guess what are those? It may include forensic psychology, health psychology, educational psychology, sports psychology, consumer psychology, political psychology, psychology of religion, and of course, IO psychology. Until now, although I love IO psychology very much, I also promote equally all subdisciplines in psychology. Why? Because I believe each specialization can contribute to the betterment of the society, our country, and the whole world. We need to solve psychological problems at individual, familial, organizational, societal, and of course, international levels, using both clinical and non-clinical interventions at micro level, meso level, and macro level, right? And then I will continue talking about my studies. I pursue my master's degree at University of Surrey, UK, in applied psychology, focusing on occupational psychology. Occupational psychology is a term used more in the UK compared to the more popular term IO psychology that originates from the US. Not to forget, the European countries prefer the term work and organizational psychology, WO psychology. So for some students, to add to the confusion, there are other terms such as management psychology, managerial psychology, and business psychology. Also, in the US, sometimes they use I/O, I-O, and I-O psychology. So we, fellow panelists, we IO psychologists need to sort this out sooner or later. Maybe we should have one Southeast Asian unique title for IO psychology. I continued studying for my PhD in IO psychology at the National University of Malaysia. I worked as an assistant professor for nearly 20 years at IUM. And then I worked at a corporate sector as general manager, human capital. And now I work as freelance consultant, organizational psychologist, with some part-time teaching at a few universities. So that's it. That's my background, love stories with IO psychology. Back to Dr. Lee.
Thank you so much for your sharing. That was very interesting to hear how it is like. Since you're from Malaysia, you know, it's a bit more close to home, sort of can something phenomenal. Now we're very curious, you know, also for how did our other panelists got drawn into psychology, IO psychology in specific. We would like to hear from Dr. Wustari. How was it? How was your journey?
Okay, let me start. Well, there was some curriculum changes in the university. Yeah, at that time when I was entered as a student in psychology. When I graduated, it's 5.5 years. This is the fastest one, and I graduated as a psychologist already. So I have to attend not only a bachelor for 3 years, 3.5 years, and then for 2 years I have to attend, they call it stages like industrial, clinical, educational, social. Yeah, so I graduate as a general psychologist. Yeah. So I can practice it, right? So after that, my passion is being becoming a lecturer, but at that time I want to get some experience first. So I the first job is I was the what you call it, the senior consultant for the refugee people. Yeah, it's at a Pulau Galang. Yeah, that's under UNHCR and Indonesian Red Cross. And after that, that's for 1 year, and then I joined the ASEAN Secretariat as the assistant director for the socio cultural affairs. So after those experiences, I was kind of between the clinical psychologist and organizational psychologist, right? So, but then I chose organizational psychologist. Why? Because I think that the psychology can help not only for difficulties people, the people who has, in their life, the clinical psychologist, but if I focus on organizational psychologist, so I can help normal people, yeah, as well as difficult people, as well as the organization. So I took my organizational psychology at the University of Queensland, yeah, and I took also management at the University of Indonesia, and I took my doctorate degree at Faculty of Psychology, Universitas Indonesia, and after that I got. I also been in the Philippines, Dr. Laude. Yeah, I took postgraduate diploma at the Ateneo University. Yeah, for strategic human resource management and diploma and at the organizational development. So after that, joined the as a lecturer. I was the lecturer at Universitas Indonesia. And after I already retired from that, I joined the Universitas Bayangkara. Now, instead of lecturer, I also a senior consultant, yeah, at the one of the consulting management, and one of one of my what I like that we also involved in merging the organization. Yeah, so that's why I like the organizational change and development. Thank you.
That was interesting. So you sort of started off from the general or typical psychology specialization, and then you switched over to the side. Yeah, thank you so much. Let me hear from Dr. Lauren. Oh, what drew you to IO Psych? Why IO Psychology?
Good afternoon to everyone, okay, and to my fellow panelists, and of course our moderator and the organizers, and everyone who carved out a weekend for this. Thank you for being here, okay? I love this, especially when people come on a weekend, because I know how precious a weekend is. Okay, first of all, I'm gonna rattle your cages. Psychology was not my first choice, okay? So, I wouldn't say it's an accident, but it was like a second or third choice. So when I entered De La Salle as a student, I was looking for the programs that I wanted to go in, and I couldn't find them. They were not yet available in those years. But I said, okay, psychology looks interesting, so I'll go into it. What happened was, I was always a working student. Okay, so this is something that I felt could help me continue working as a part of not just academia but also industry. And interestingly enough, I found psychology very interesting, especially the field of IO, which was just opening back then. So I'm showing my age here. I think I'm older than the other panelists, because at that time, no one had heard of IO psychology. So if you follow the history, a lot of people started in social psychology. So most of the IO practitioners started in social psychology, then eventually graduated into the IO field. But what was so interesting was because my background of being a working student helped me understand the field better. because it was about psychology being applied to the workplace. So to the students who are here, don't worry about, not having a clear direction on a career as you enter college, okay? Because I believe that at each stage of your development, you keep on finding yourself and changing your choices. So today, actually, my practice of IO psychology has gone into financial psychology. I actually do mergers and acquisitions. So it's not pure psychology anymore. It's, a blend of business and psychology, actually. So I find this very interesting because it allows me to work with heads of organizations and startups, especially startups. I love startups because as a practitioner in the field, I have what you call socialized billing for my clients. So if they're startups, I usually, share the burden with them and don't charge them a huge amount. Versus if it's a huge corporate conglomerate I'm working with, of course, then they have a budget, a bit much bigger budget, right? So actually, as far back as 1980, there was already a global fearless projection by trend trackers that was made. And you know what they said? Psychology would be the profession of the future. And then again in 2000, a famous economist again made a fearless prediction and said that the future really shows that psychology is very much needed. We don't actually, he was very brave. He said, we don't need more technocrats, we need more psychologists. So whether you stay in the clinical field or industrial organization psychology, okay, don't worry if your skills are heavy on clinical. Why? You can use them. What's one trend in industry right now? Employee assistance programs. And so when you develop an EAP, this is much more than just the usual human resource provision or OD interventions. This is a highly stylized program that really caters to not just the physiological, but also the psychological, and especially right now with this mental health, concern that we have post-pandemic, it becomes even more relevant to have an EAP. So for those of you who are still in the clinical and you're still deciding if you're really going to go full-fledged to IO, don't worry. The skills will still be put to use. And of course, when you go hardcore industrial organizational psychology, you got to beef up on things like, better planning of human resources, better testing methodologies and screening of people. Because, a lot of people today can just easily cheat. That's why you never just do testing, you never just do interviews, right? Because the practice of IO psychology provides a balance of, your intuition, your clinical background, and of course, that little bit of organizational psychology that you learned in school. So it's actually a mix of experiences. And I think this is what provides so much potential for growth, okay, and psychology remaining such a highly marketable profession at the end of the day. So for those students here, please don't worry if you're still finding yourself. What's important is you go out there and experience, okay? You can work for an NGO, work for a company, work even for a school. What's important is that you expose yourself and apply the theories of psychology into either an industrial organizational setting. Remember, it's IO. So organization means any organization, no matter what work is involved. So the exposure is very important. Go hopping around. I know some people won't like that suggestion, but it's about finding yourself. And if that's the only way to do so, then find your comfort level. Find the environment that fits you most. What's important is that you and the work setting match. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lauren. Well, it sounds like, it doesn't matter where we are from. We may not always know what we want to do, but it's always like a journey of discovery. And I think that's very comforting because I think majority of the participants here are undergraduates and they are interested to know, what's out there, what's in IO psychology, what are the trends. And I think today they really have a treat to have the Malaysian expert, the Philippines expert, and also the Indonesian experts to share a little bit more. So the next question that I would like to bring up for discussion is we want to know, so what is the current trend in IO psychology in your country? So perhaps closer to home, can we hear from Dr. Alizi?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Lee. I'm now using external mic. I hope you can hear me clearer now, because I read the feedback that the volume of my voice is so soft. Is it okay now?
Little bit,
Is it okay now, or is it the same?
a little bit better.
Better. Okay, good. Thank you so much. Better is better than just soft. Okay. So first of all, I would love to hear from the other panelists about what are the current trends and what happens in the country. But let me first start with what happened in Malaysia. Coincidentally, I have conducted a literature review on research that has been conducted in Malaysia related to IO psychology by reviewing published and unpublished research. We found out that 70% of the research has been focusing on quality of work life. 13%, 1-3, focusing on organizational development. 8.5% focusing on ergonomic, also known as engineering psychology. 5% only focusing on selection and placement, which happened to be my favorite subject. 2% focusing on training and development, whereas 1.5% focusing on performance appraisal. What can we conclude here? I think Malaysian researchers, Malaysian academicians, Malaysian students in IO psychology are more interested in the sub-area of organizational psychology compared to personnel psychology, selection, training, and performance appraisal. I think we can improve a lot on this, because one of the most crucial time of any IO psychologists in practice is when they select the applicants, when they train the employees, and then when they evaluate their performance. So fellow students out there, I hope some of you will conduct research in the area of personnel psychology. Of course, you have freedom to study, to conduct research on organizational psychology also, but just to give you more options. And that one is about research. What about education? IO psychology is still a newcomer in Malaysia. UKM offered its first master's degree in IO psychology in 1994, whereas IIUM, where I graduated, offered its own master's program in 1996. And then comes UMS at Sabah, Health University, Nottingham, Malaysia, and a few others. Now, although it seems promising, but there are still more need to be done on the applications of IO psychology in industry. That one, I think, is lacking, probably because we don't have professional bodies yet. I was informed at Indonesia and Philippines, the regulations of psychologists are quite advanced, so we have to learn more from them. So we need to, fellow students in Malaysia, for example, we need to advocate the need to have regulatory body. We do have Malaysian Psychological Society, but that one is an NGO, non-governmental organization, not yet regulatory body. So we don't have things such as APA in America, or SIOP in America, or Division of Occupational Psychology in the UK. Based on the Malaysian Standard Classification of Occupation designed by Malaysian Department of Manpower, there is no job title called IO psychologist. But we do have a job title called Psychology Officer, designated under the Malaysian Public Services Department. But they only have 3 categories: Psychology Officer Clinical, Psychology Officer Counseling, and Psychology Officer General. In other words, if you are an IO psychologist in the government, you are only called psychology officer without the term IO. Okay? But there are at least three promising developments in psychology in Malaysia. Malaysian Qualification Agency, or MQA, had published Academic Program Standard in Psychology 2nd edition, 2023. Just so happened, I was one of the writers or developer of this program standard. This is to ensure high quality programs offered at colleges and universities in Malaysia. Second, PESIMA, the one I mentioned just now, Malaysian Psychological Association, are trying very hard, are trying to use different strategies to get the Psychology Act to be accepted by any ministry or department in the government. Either top-down approach involving all specialization in psychology, or we are thinking maybe bottom-up approach. Maybe we can start small with IO Psychology Act parked under the Ministry of Human Resource. Now that would be very interesting. Of course, there are pros and cons, but we are trying to figure out what is the best strategy. Number 3, Public Service Department is in the process of developing psychology policies for psychology officers under various government agencies. Again, I was honored to become one of those who are developing this, and I hope to promote various other areas apart from clinical and counseling psychologists in the government agencies. I think that's all for now. Let's go back to Dr. Lee.
Thank you for the updates about about the trend in Malaysia. I learned some new things there. So let's hear from Indonesia, Dr. Wustari. What's going on? What's the trend in your country?
Okay, thank you. Well, actually, the trend in IO sometimes is also mixed with the HRM, the human resource management, because and so some of the topics that now is the trend are about the well-being. Yeah, both the organizational, also the psychological well-being, employee well-being, yeah, and also about the resilience, yeah, resilient, especially during the pandemic, yeah. So not only the psychological resilience, but as well as for the organizational resilience. Yeah, how the organization can become resilient with all the changes that happen right now. Yeah, and not only that, we also talk about the talent management. Yeah, because when we talk about the talent, it always goes to the psychology. Yeah, because talent is about the people who got the talent and how psychology has some influence in that. And even our government is paying very high attention to develop the people. Yeah, and we also even have some special task force for talent management. Yeah, and also we the topics also about the work-life balances. Yeah, because everybody, now we talk about that and how psychology has the some issues regarding that. Yeah, as well as now we it's quite popular about the positive psychology in the organizational setting. So about the how people get happiness, yeah, and the well-being, how they can flourish, yeah, mindfulness, all kind of that. That's the positive psychology in the organizational setting. And due to the digital right now, IO also had some what is it we call it, some touch in about the digital and how workplace can become digital, what is the effect of it, and how the employee or the workforce and are all people can be replaced by the artificial intelligence, something like that. But to think that the one that got a psychologist cannot be replaced, because it's about people, right? All right, so it's not. And about agility, we talk about agility, and also we talk about organizational change and development. And how the IO psychologists can help people that have to undertake the organizational change, because as we know, all the changes usually can become kind of burden and some kind of stressful condition. And so psychology in this case have some influence, some impact, yeah, have a very great role in that kind of things, as well as the organizational change and organizational development itself. Yeah, because my experience as the consultant of OD also can apply the IO psychologist when conducting organizational change, organizational merger for the four big public state-owned organization in Indonesia. So those are our things. So don't be afraid, student, that there are lots of field, yeah, that you can join in. Yeah.
Like there's so many opportunities. And
Yeah,
so many
that's right.
ways to explore. That's great. That's great to hear what's going on in Indonesia. Now, what about Philippines? What is the current IO trend?
Okay. Traditionally, we're talking before the pandemic, most of our IO students or graduates actually go to consulting firms, or they do their own startups, and then some of them go to government, okay, in different offices, from the central bank to actually our hospitals, even major hospitals and other government units. Some of them, well, the largest majority of them go to industry, to different kinds of sectors in industry. And of course, some end up in universities, higher institutions of learning. And of course, some work for NGOs. So these are the usual settings that we find them in. However, when we talk about managing the transition to a post-pandemic world, okay, there were three major issues that we see happening for the challenged IO psychologists. One is work from home. Two, mental health and well-being. And three, retention of employees. Okay, so let me just break this down a bit so you know what we're doing. Because of the pandemic, psychological safety in the workplace became such a big issue. It was like, the economic downturn. It's not just the threat of the pandemic, but also the changes economically that we all went through, the destruction of and interruption of supply chains. It actually caused a lot of people to feel, concerned if they still had a job, or if the job, especially when you start working from home, you realize certain things. Like for those of us who have aging members of our family, it was a great opportunity to work and take care of them. For young families, women who just had babies, or the husbands who had to wake up with their wives for the babies, it was also a great opportunity to make the adjustment and bond with their children. So work from home actually changed the landscape of how we look at work. It's something like, oh, we can work from home after all. We don't have to be in the office every single day. And so psychological safety was connected to wellness also. And people are beginning to see that work-life balance need not be something like there's set hours in the office and set hours at home. It was a case of not a 50-50 arrangement, but what makes you happy, okay? And the time was basically yours to carve out. So psychological safety would be achieved, and of course, well-being that way. But this posed challenges for recruitment and talent. Why? It's what caused the mass exodus out of the offices, because everybody wanted to work from home when they said that it could be done. And at the same time, there were a lot of new jobs that opened work from home. So if I were in recruitment and talent searches, this is such a huge headache, because like I may have been used to just recruiting people to come to the office, but now I gotta consider someone who just wants to purely work from home or wants a hybrid kind of arrangement. So certain days in the week, I get to go to the office, but other days of the week, I get to work from home. So these permutations actually challenge IO practitioners in the field of human resource planning, recruitment, and that whole ball game of getting people, to work for a company. At the same time, we were adjusting and reshaping how we work because now we have to worry about metrics, right? How do you evaluate someone who's working from home? It's not like when they're in the office, it's so easy to check on them and their outputs. Right now, you have to change even the way you're going to expect the output from people because they're going to be working from home. So, how are you going to account for the hours and how sure are you they're working and not eating or doing something else? I think a lot of us gained weight working from home. The refrigerator and kitchen was within easy reach, right? And then at the same time, reshaping how we work in terms of, hey, I can work with just a laptop or a computer, a desktop, or sometimes even just my phone if it has video capability. So it's very interesting that my own president at the university does a lot of his communication with me. I just see iPhone, iPhone. So I know he's been sending all these emails to me through his iPhone. So he can be on the road going to one of our other schools in our system, or he can even be abroad or even on an airplane, and he's sending all of this through his iPhone. So see, this is how work has reshaped when we discovered that the virtual platform opened more avenues for us. And I'd like to add this, I found it so inclusive. Why? In internationalization, suddenly kids had the feel of it without, having to travel abroad. So they can just be here, like in the platform we're all in right now. And this is an international, conference. And we get to see people from different parts of the planet meeting together for this event. So I find it very inclusive, especially for students who cannot afford to travel. So they get a glimpse of another world through the virtual platform. See, this is all about reshaping. And of course, diversity and inclusion. That's why I mentioned highly inclusive, because suddenly you can meet and greet people, you can share experiences with them through the platform. And then I remember that in one of the COIL classes I was in, my grad students were so amazed by our counterpart class in the Middle East, because one of the students opened her phone and started walking through the city of Bethlehem to show us the different sites in the country and in her city specifically. So it was so wonderful to have this glimpse of another world through the virtual platform. So it was so highly inclusive. And so IO practitioners actually have seen, whether you're in academe or in the office, the whole world opening up actually post-pandemic. And this is a current trend that people have embraced very well. There's just one big problem, the time zones. I think it's just disappeared because we have meetings as late as 10 o'clock to 12 midnight. And then we have conferences from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning. So I think this is just the downside, because before we just had, IO practitioners working for multinationals on the opposite side of the planet who were having late night meetings. But right now, because the virtual platform has opened so much and reshaped our world, our very worlds, that suddenly it's like an all out, season, of just meetings and encounters left and right. So I would hazard a guess that actually people are more stressed now in the field of IO psychology, because your HR requirements could be, like if I'm working for Shell, for instance, I can be in Manila, but I'm talking to Singapore, Malaysia, the UK, and Amsterdam all at the same time, because the platform is there. And then people say we can do it. So this really poses such a huge challenge for recruitment, especially because would people want to work like this now that the virtual platform is like, a given already in our world? Thank you.
So well pointed out how, life has changed ever since the pandemic, especially with technology. It just changed the way how people work, how employees and employers, organizations do work. And with that said, I'm wondering, would that change the career prospects for those who are interested to enter IO psychology? Dr. Alizi?
Oh, okay, it's for me. Thank you, Dr. Lee. Traditionally, I think let's talk about the career prospect from a traditional point of view of what are the typical career IO psychologist graduate can join. For example, in Malaysia, of course, I think in many other countries, the obvious choice is to become an academician, to become a psychology lecturer teaching most psychology courses in undergraduate level. And then if you are lucky, if your university have offered masters in IO psychology, you can teach specialized subjects. That is one of the obvious choice, and it's quite easy also to get the job, because I think the job opening is quite high to become a psychology lecturer. Second is, as I mentioned before, a government-related post, which is called psychology officers. But like I've said, the title is generic psychology officers, except clinical and counseling. We have quite a lot of a number of IO psychology graduates working as psychology officers, but the job title remains psychology officers. But since they're quite strong now, that's why I said they are now going to talk about psychology policies for psychology officers, and I've given my feedback. We need to acknowledge various specialization that the psychology officers have in addition to clinical and counseling. Sometimes some IO psychology graduates work as managers, mostly related to human resource or occupational safety and health. Unfortunately, they don't use the job title IO psychologist. Very seldom a private company use the term IO psychologist, because of course, if you use that term, they cannot recruit people from management or MBA graduates. So the title remain human resource manager or safety and health officer, organizational development officer, executive or managers. The other options on the career of IO psychologists in Malaysia are by working at private consultancy firms, and if you're lucky, the firm agree to use the term IO psychologist, then you can officially call yourself IO psychologist. Or if you have enough money, you can set up your own firm and call yourself IO psychologist. In other words, you yourself create the job title. Or if you want, you can be like me, freelance consultant. So you can call yourself whatever you want. If your area of specialization is organizational psychologist, then call yourself IO psychologist. I call myself consultant organizational psychologist. I deleted the industrial because it's too lengthy, and I will have difficulty to explain to people what's the I means and what's the O means. So just organizational psychologist. Now, one of the things that you might face when you are joining the industries or even academic fields is the misperception that psychology is all about mental illness. I know we have more clinical psychologists than any other psychologists, but sometimes you have to, what do you call it, roll eye when people are you diagnose mental illness, you conduct therapy for mentally ill patient. Of course, you have to be patient to explain to them what is IO psychology, right? But the problem is sometimes, and this is kind of, it might lure you to the dark side, and I'm not talking about Star Wars here. If people invite you to talk about mental illness, you have to abide by the ethical conduct. Usually when people invited me to talk about mental illness, I would say, if it's a forum, please make sure that the second panelist is either a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist. So I can give my perspective on mental illness at workplace. If you want me to invite me alone, if the organizer want to invite me alone, I can limit myself to talk about mental illness at workplace or mental illness from Islamic perspective, because I have a bachelor degree in Islamic psychology. So that's how you should make sure that you are still bound by ethics taught by your lecturers. During pandemic, stress and mental health not mental illness, mental health at workplace is still the most popular topic. During pandemic and also post-pandemic, I was invited a lot. Yeah. And of course, second most popular topic, mental health from Islamic perspective. And the third most popular is, of course, languishing, because I wrote a book called Languishing, Penat in Malay language, which is about languishing, because many people experiencing languishing during MCO, yeah, during pandemic. Sometimes I invited to talk about leadership, teamwork, and group conflict. So I think you know what happened in the field by looking at the most popular topic invited, where I was invited to be a speaker. But very seldom people invite me to talk on personal selection, performance evaluation, and also training. That again shows how not very popular the personal selection part of IO psychology. Yeah, I saw one comment here. Can you read my mind? Yeah, you will roll your eye, right? But please be patient, because we have a job to promote IO psychology. So don't go to the dark side and scold the person who asked you. Another thing, when you involve in the career of SIO psychologists, do not be involved in pseudo psychology. Sometimes your boss asks you to use selection method which are not valid, training which is more on the pop side, and teamwork which is more hormonal than evidence-based. But I understand if it is difficult, you know how Eastern culture is difficult to say no to your boss, right? But you have to continue psycho-educating your boss and your co-workers that these are not scientific. There's no guarantee that it will work, and it might lead to long-term harm. Okay, and don't forget, IO psychology graduate has to compete with graduates of MBA and also management studies, and that is a tough thing to do in Malaysia, and I'm sure in any other countries. That's it from me. Let's go back to Dr. Lee.
Thank you. So basically, it sounds like because Malaysia is still developing in the area of psychology, the IO psychologists themselves, they have to educate the employers and find their own way. But basically, they have the essence of the knowledge. It's just that we don't have it officially nailed down like I'm an IO psychologist.
True.
Job position, right? So that's basically what's happening in Malaysia. And now I guess our audience who are in Malaysia know a little bit more. What are the possible career prospects?
Yeah.
But they have to develop it, basically.
True.
Yeah, great. What about in Indonesia? What's the career prospects for those who want to work in Indonesia in this area? Dr.
Okay.
Well,
Okay. Okay. I think the career prospect is very wide. Yeah, and if our previous speaker explain regarding the places, maybe I can explain a bit about the the focus. Yeah, so the focus of IO psychologists, we can develop, we can divide it by, one is about the organizational psychology. So it's about the organizational change, like I told you before, and how the IO psychologists can also helping the organizational to change in whatever way, because there are many intervention, such as the restructuring organization, yeah, about people development and so on. So when people call herself or himself the OD consultant, means that they already mastering the whole intervention about recruitment, training, and organization itself. So that's the big one. So if you are already good, go to become the OD consultant. Yeah, and the other one is that I think the majority, yeah, goes to the work psychology or the personnel psychology. Yeah, they usually are working as in the HR. Yeah, or HR itself right now can be divided as the personnel one and the selection, recruitment, or training development, or about the performance, and I know about the talent development, industrial relation. Yeah, those are the fields that the IO psychologists can participate on, not only for the private companies, but as well for the state-owned and also for the NGO as well. And the other one is that you can also become the, like I said, the employee assistance program. You can work as by yourself, yeah, by being the consultant, and some some companies can invite you to become that, or as well that you can have your you join the consultant, or you have your own consultant, yeah, or you act as the EAP, employee assistance program officer in the organization itself. Yeah, or you can also working like I said, the community development. Yeah, community development, the IO psychologists can also help them. So usually when talking about people and how you handling about people that they may be resistant to change, yeah, resistant to participate in the all activities, that's the IO psychologists can participate on. And also another field is about the consumer behavior. Yeah, consumer behavior. This one is, I think, the consumer behavior is not right now is getting a bigger interest. Yeah, so people who interest in why people buy something. Yeah, what motivate people. Yeah, that's the consumer. So you have to understand the behavior of the people. That's the IO psychologist. And if it is blended with the digital one, yeah, the digital marketing, the social marketing, yeah. So like my daughter, yeah, she is graduate as a psychology bachelor, not yet IO, but she's already hired as the social marketing, social media. So she is using the knowledge, yeah, skills about the psychology in persuading, making the advertising, yeah, for people that so they can buy this item better than the other one. So that's the consumer behavior. Yeah. Okay. And also, like it has been mentioned with the previous doctor from the Philippines, yeah, we are now also interested in economic and business psychology. Yeah, that's about how the IO psychologists can understand why, yeah, people like to put money, yeah, in what is it, the obligation, or in other like crypto, yeah, because this is also the new psychology which is developed right now. And as well as but not least, and also there is career that you can also pursue in there, in the field called ergonomics. Yeah, ergonomics means that people develop something, yeah, things, design something like furniture, or design the room that make people convenience and comfortable at work. Like maybe you see that when in the airplane, yeah, because it's too small, yeah, so they have to design it that's still comfortable, but it is nice. And how many meters? Yeah, the table from the floor. That is good, and it is nice for people to work it. Yeah. So when you see about the ergonomics one, so means that one. Yeah, and also another one that is now it's quite what I call it popular. It's in terms of counseling, coaching and counseling. Become an executive coach. Yeah, become the, because now the training coaching, yeah, it's now very popular one. Yeah, so you can also make much profit in that. Yeah, being a good a good coach and counselor. Okay, thank you.
So it sounds like there are many different, quite varied career prospects
Right,
for those
right,
who graduate with IO psychology.
right, right.
Yeah,
So,
it's back to them, like their creativity, where do they want to go and
Like,
which area they want to dive into.
yeah, because usually people only related about IO with the selection and recruitment, training, performance management, but actually it's quite wide. Yeah, yeah, quite wide. And also you can apply to all type of organization. Yeah, NGO, private, as well as state-owned organization.
Yeah, so basically it's to keep our minds open.
Yes, exactly,
Use the knowledge and apply in the different areas. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Great, great. Thank you so much. It's great to hear what's going on, especially in your country. We
Yeah.
can do a little comparison. Now, what about Philippines? What's going on there? Like, what are the career prospects for those in Philippines?
Okay. Let me divide the field into two very distinct sectors. You have human resource development on one side, and you have human resource management on the other side. So let me talk about HRD development first. Um, in this area, students or graduates of IO can focus on individual development, which means they can do coaching, professional coaching, career planning, and all that. They can also do occupational and group development. So everything from career development again, and also the coaching of groups, not just individuals, and also organizational development, which is actually organizational diagnostics and of course interventions. Then, of course, organizational design, which factors in not just human design, but earlier Bustari mentioned also ergonomics, because it has to be a 360-degree kind of intervention if you really want it to be effective. That's why you call it human resource development. Now, the other aspect is human resource management, because it's not just about developing people, you also need to know how to manage. So developing great reward systems to keep your people, to sustain them, to encourage them is very important. And at the end of the day, most of the motivational theories and research actually tell you it's not just about money. You have to have some psychological mental rewards also that are part of your reward systems, because while they say money is within the top 3 reasons why people stay, number one is always if I am happy. So we really have to address the psychological more than anything else. And then, of course, the employee assistance programs that are developed come into management also. The development of good employee relations systems. You want to make sure that everybody gets along and is happy with each other. You want peace and harmony, okay, and no infighting, okay. So some bosses actually like their people competitive and fighting. I just won't say who, but there was one very famous person who said, if they're busy fighting, they don't see me. So I mean, that's so terrible, don't you think? Because peace and harmony is really crucial to success and valid outputs in any organization. And of course, research and information systems. So it's not just about managing people, but the information that is being churned out by them. And so it's not just about an info system that's passive, meaning you're doing demographics and just counting people, but it should lend itself to a research component. Why? Because you need to understand what your demographics are all about, what your data, loose data is all about. There's a huge, mine of information that you can actually learn from. For example, if you have a lot of young mothers in your company, then this could affect how you would develop reward systems that are tailored, to their needs. Or if you have like a certain age group that dominates in your company, then you can take a look at also what they want, okay? And so the reward systems and the assistance in the EAPs could be better formulated. Then at the end of the day, when you combine HRD and HRM, so development fused with management now, this is where job design comes in. Why? You're developing people with the mind to being able to manage them. So this is what affects how you design jobs. And at the end of the day, it also covers human resource planning, because how can you plan without developing and managing, right? And then, of course, performance management is also a component of development as well as management. And last but not least, when this affects your recruitment and staffing. So it's not just about planning for the people that you're going to bring in and onboard, but it's also how am I going to go about recruiting them? Who exactly do I want to recruit? And how will I staff the different departments or sections in my organization? So this is about developing, and it's also about management. So it's a whole process by itself. And so, we're looking at, different levels of expertise. You're good with numbers, then you go into the planning part. Okay, you're very good at interviewing people, so you go to the individual development or the recruitment portions. So you notice that it's so easy to become a jack of all trades, because psychologists tend to be like that. They want to try everything. But at the end of the day, this is important. You must niche. Okay. So try not to, well, at the beginning, it's good to try everything because it makes sense. You're finding yourself and what you're good at. But eventually, niche. Because remember, you cannot claim to know everything. You have to go to a domain that makes you comfortable, allows you to be the best that you can be. And most of all, you have to notice if you're growing in what you're doing. Because if you don't see yourself growing and you find yourself, especially in the morning, it's very difficult to get up, there is already something wrong. Because, physical tiredness is easy. You rest, you eat. But the psychological, mental tiredness is something that only you can cure. So maybe it's time for you to take a look at where you are right now. And if you're still happy with that job, you shouldn't be afraid to let go. Thank you.
Thank you. So basically, I'm hearing is that, well, we go out and explore and discover what's out there. We learn about ourselves, and we shouldn't just stay general and do everything, but rather we should find a specialization or a niche where we can contribute best. Yeah. So thank you so much to our 3 panelists on sharing, what the career prospects are, what's the trend in IO psychology. And I'm sure there's a lot more that you can share, but due to time, I think it'd be great that we can give our participants a chance to ask all their burning questions. Maybe they have, after they've heard so much from you, they actually have questions that they want to know. So dear participants, here is your time. So in the chat box, you can ask a question by raising your hand and unmute your mic. You raise your hand and we'll pass the time to you. Or if you're shy, you can actually type your questions in the chat box. So this question and answer will be about 20 minutes. All right, so we have one question. How to increase awareness of public or stakeholders about how important psychology is, how important IO psychology is? How do we create awareness of the importance of IO psychology to the public? That's one question.
Maybe in order, may I start first?
Yes, please. Yes.
In usual order. I think I mentioned just now that I am an advocate of all areas in psychology. In order for people to understand what IO psychology is, they need to understand what psychology is first. That it's not just about clinical psychology. That it's not just about counseling. Only when people understand that psychology is beyond counseling, beyond mental illness, they will start to explore, oh, what else can a psychologist do? Oh, what types of other psychologists are there? And then you can talk about IO psychologists. I find after I quit my academic job, that is the first time I started writing at my social media. And thank God, I think around 44,000 followers at Facebook, 21,000, I think, at Twitter. Instagram, not so much because I don't upload so many pictures. And people are asking a lot of questions, not only about psychology in general, but also about IO psychology. And I think social media is very important. At the same time, I also involved in with a stakeholder such as the PESIMA, which is the NGO, main NGO in Malaysia related to psychology, and also the public service department. But don't expect too much, because in general, people still misunderstood what psychology is. But at least it's improving. It's improving. Another thing is for us to make people understand that there is both management graduate and IO psychology graduate are important. There is overlap, but both complement each other. One thing I realized when I worked as general manager for human capital is I lack training in the legal aspect of HR and also OSH, safety and health. I have to learn from scratch. I have to read all the Employment Act, the Safety and Health Act. That is the thing that we need to learn so that we can contribute more. At the same time, I think the management side also are now quite interested in the human side of workers. This is where IO psychology comes in. And I think they also read books, you know, like people like Dr. Adam Grant, very popular IO psychologist from the US. And that is, I think it needs continuous work from all IO psychology graduates, IO psychology students. But I do believe that you should start by promoting psychology first, and then you promote IO psychology. Thank you.
So starting from the basic, just promoting general psychology, that understanding before a more specialized understanding of IO. Yeah. Hey, Dr. Wustari, yes, please.
Okay. I think I also agree. Yeah. With saying about that, we have to socialize about the psychology first. The challenge is right now, I think, especially in Indonesia, when talking about psychology, when talking about psychologists, yeah, their mind always relating with the clinical psychologist, educational psychologist. Yeah, so then the never think about there is a field called the IO psychologist. That's the challenge. Yeah, that's a challenge. Yeah, because when thinking about psychology, oh, so means that you can read my mind. So can you help me with my problem? Yeah. Oh, okay. My son is like this and this and this, because IO psychologist is not dealing with that. Yeah. So we have to socialize. Yeah, about the differences between the clinical psychologist, child psychologist, and IO psychologist. Yeah, and secondly, also the usually people also think that IO psychologists only concerned with selection and recruitment. Yeah, because most of the graduates join, and then they enter the job as a recruiter. Yeah, so I always make a jokes with them Come on, there is also I think one tools we call it Kraplin. Maybe you heard about it already, and I said that, come on guys, the IO psychologists not only doing the like that. Yeah, we have so much to do. Yeah, so this is also the asking our challenge then to make people aware of the there is the IO psychologists that have a great role, not only talking about that. Yeah, and even because the IO psychological field, it's so much what I call it sexy. Yeah, because they can get more money compared to the other child psychology and that, and so it makes people who do not have the IO psychologist qualification, they enter the job as the IO psychologist. So this is also our challenge. So yeah, so that's why we have to maybe we also have to work together with the our association, yeah, association of IO psychologists, association of psychologists. Yeah, in Indonesia we have that. Yeah, and then we can try to educating the people the differences between them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
That is so spot on, everything that you said.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of questions coming in now. So I guess we better continue with the next one.
Yeah.
So participants, in the chat box, we will also send a feedback form. So you can also feel free to give us feedback. Yeah. So yeah, the next question. How to increase employee engagement in startup companies that apply the working from home policy? How can we increase employee engagement in startup companies that apply working from home policy? Perhaps Dr. Lauren?
Let me answer that. Actually, I mentioned this earlier about reshaping the way we work. Um, I think that employers have to start thinking that times have really changed. And I mean, for those of us who are academics here and the students, you know very well that we used to just go fully face to face, and then hybrid classes were only run by a few teachers. That's why MOOC and COIL took a while to take off in some universities globally. But right now, you know, the hybrid modality is very popular.
Mhm.
Half of the time, so it's not just synchronous asynchronous, but it's
Mhm.
face to face combined with
Mhm.
virtual,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So companies have to move in that
Mhm.
direction because
Correct.
that's the future already.
Agree.
So I've seen a lot of organizations, not just offices, but even schools that have worked out this kind of arrangement, not just with their students, but also with their staff. So staff are allowed to come on site to their workplaces for certain days of the week, and then on other days they work on the virtual platform. So far, some have been experimenting with it, and they find that it's working. Okay, it's something like you've already let the kid into the candy store, right? So you can't pretty much say no candy exists. So this is what happened during the lockdown. And so I think that work from home is here to stay. So companies have to reshape the way they're thinking. So when they recruit, they have to be ready to offer, do you want fully on site, do you want fully virtual, or do you want hybrid? So these three options make it more interesting to capture a wider market or a wider selection of applicants to your company. But I noticed that because I get feedback, not just from my students, but from my corporate contacts, that they lose people when they insist you have to come back face to face. Okay, these people don't want to do that anymore. You can't force the issue. It's their right. And not only that, yes, I saw in the chat box some people, not only left but started their own company because with the internet, my golly, you can sell anything so quickly, right? And so people are well, they're either working for some major distribution outlet like Lazada and all that out there, or they are starting their own distribution network, okay, and selling a lot of things. So it's very interesting that, people have to rethink, they can't stay stubborn, and hold on to old ideas of doing business. That's why adapt adapt or change or die, right? There's a saying that goes that way. And companies are just not, well, some, not all, are just not getting that message. Okay, so work from home is here to stay. And so that's my biggest message to those who, are having difficulty recruiting. You have to give options now. Like I said earlier, it's not just about offering good salaries and benefits. It's about having people being given the option to work as they wish. Okay, and don't forget what I said also earlier. Some people have aging parents they're taking care of, or a relative they're taking care of at home. So they got used to that. And then another is the young families taking care of their kids. And the whole concept of being with my children is so important to a lot of people. So you have to give them that leeway. And also, there's a research out of SIOP. This is a Society for IO Psychologists in the States. There's a study there that actually says that employers who allow, okay, their employees, to go home if there's a sick relative, or go for a hybrid, or some other arrangement, are actually rated very highly. And these are places where people like to work and stay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just now we had a participant that raised her hand. She wanted to ask a question. Christy Chong, are you still there? Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, that'll be me. Thank you so much. First, I want to say thank you to all the speakers for the informative session, and Ramadan Kareem to all. So a bit of a background, I'm a soon to graduate PhD student, and I'm looking for some advice on entering into the industry with a social psychology background. So my question is, what are some transferable skills or characteristics that hiring personnel look for in, say, like organizational development? Thank you.
Let me
Okay.
start with a very brief answer first, just very brief. I will only focus on the social psychology part. You mentioned that you are a graduate of social psychology, right?
Yeah, soon to graduate. Yes.
Yeah, social psychology is, I mentioned to you just now, I'm so interested in applied social psychology. So I think you have an option to work in almost any setting. You can work at legal setting, applying social psychology, at health setting, educational setting, sports setting, political setting, or even religious setting. So the option is the limit, the sky is the limit actually. So of course you can also apply it at organizational setting, applying group dynamic, applying attribution theory, applying helping behavior, interpersonal attraction, aggression also, and even group dynamic. So I will stop at that because I know other panelists can say a lot about to give advice to you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, maybe I may add something. Yeah. If your background in social psychologist, I think the previous one has already explained about some of the fields that you can join, as well as you can join also as the like I said about the community development one. Yeah, that's a very I call it's a very career prestigious, and the amount the salary is also good. Yeah, if you want to pursue your career there. Yeah, so that's to become the ComDev, call it. Yeah, community development. And if you want to become to go to the organizational psychologist, please, I think you have to add some more what is it, the knowledge in terms of management. Yeah, so you've got the social psychology side, and you've got the management side. So if you want to join the organization, so you've got the more the complete side, of the knowledge. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Now, there have been quite a number of questions being asked regards to the current technology involvement in our lives. So I'm going to sum it up together and throw it out to the panelists to answer. So with IA gaining ground, like for example, ChatGPT, and this might make future jobs redundant. So how important is IO psychology? And also, they are interested to know what is the perspective of the panelists, especially for career prospects with IT development in emerging fields like IT or sustainability. So perhaps you could share your opinion regarding this.
Dr. D, may I start on this? Okay, you will never lose your job to a robot. Why? Who invents the robot? The human being.
Yeah.
Who maintains the robot? The human being.
Exactly.
Who
Yeah.
programs it? The human being. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's moot. Okay, so don't worry about that. But we can talk about where multi and interdisciplinary, convergence happens. Why? For example, you have the mechanical engineers creating the robot and then the AI program is developed by the computer science people. But let's say this is a biomedical device. So you just don't need the engineers and the computer science geeks there. You need also medical doctors to talk about the medical condition. You need the psychologists to talk about the concept of phantom pain and all the psychological traumas that are involved in losing a limb, whether it's use or actual it being amputated. See? So you need also a lot of other people from different fields collaborating and coming together. Okay, because that biomedical device will not be successful without input from everybody. And it's not just clinical psychologists, but even the IO psychologists. Why? They will see the marketing possibilities and the bigger impact for an organization and different sectors of society who will use that biomedical device and the impact of that also, not just on the users, but to the greater majority of people who see that device in use. So as an IO practitioner, actually, the onset of IT and then chat GBT and all these technological developments are not something you should be afraid of. In fact, you should be excited. You'll get more jobs, actually. Because remember, with all these new things, new problems are going to crop up. And who's going to solve those problems? Psychologists. So whether you're in clinical practice or IO, you're going to be needed to do the job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Now,
like that
what-
answer.
Pardon?
I like that answer. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so true, right? We are the one who's going to be solving it, IO psychologists, and all of you here doing IO psych, right? We're
Yeah.
you for the future. Okay, we have one last question before we close the session with a photo taking and also some feedback. So this is the question. What are some effective strategies that organizations could consider now to handle turnover rate? What are some effective strategies that organizations could consider in handling turnover rate?
Let me start by giving
Well-
a very brief answer. Shall I?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. This is an issue of organizational commitment. And the problem is sometimes we cannot differentiate between commitments towards a job and commitments toward an organization. I think due to, if you heard of the term gig economy, this person, they are very committed to their job, but not necessarily to the company. So you have to, company have to accept this reality. If you want to get the best workers, sometimes you might have to recruit people who are not committed to the job, but not committed to the organization, but make sure you take care of them, their well-being. What are their needs? What make them motivated? What make them able to manage their stress at home because they are usually temporary workers, So when they're working with you, there's different kind of stress. When they're not working at all, different kind of stress. When they work from home, different kind of stress. So you have to take care of that. Another thing, I know there's a mass quitting that happened at the US, but there's another phenomenon that other panelists can also comment, which is called the quiet quitting. Have you heard about the term quiet quitting? That means only performing the job, the minimum requirement that they need to do. So that you come at 8 o'clock and you go back at 5 o'clock. And that is so perplexing to Gen X or baby boomer. I always work until 6 or until 10 o'clock, and that shows I'm a good worker. But to some youngsters, especially young workers, maybe, first of all, maybe because they care about their mental health, or they perceive their company did not take care of their mental health. So they don't care whether they got promoted or not, as long as they can maintain their mental health. So companies, HR manager out there, please take care of the well-being. And who's better of taking care of the workers other than IO psychologists? Yes, I know clinical psychologists take care of the mental inpatient, but we are talking at macro level here. We are dealing with hundreds, possibly thousands of people rather than one-to-one. So don't worry. Yeah, thank you.
May I add something? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Dr. Alice. And I agree very much with your opinion. I just want to add that sometimes people always think that employee try to stay at home because of the money. Yeah, but in reality, no. Yeah, like you said, that the well-being, the psychological well-being, a very nice climate, and even I think according to the research, 75% of the turnover that people usually leave the company because of what? Leader. It's not because of the money. It's not because of the career, but because of the leader, because they know that they cannot develop themselves very much. Then they feel that the leader is not supporting them. Yeah, so they leave. Yeah, especially the millennial generation right now. They think that, oh, okay, I just can leave, and then I can also go to another company and pursue my career. Perfect. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so that's not only money. So listen to the management, please. Yeah, take care of the leader and take care of the employee. Thank you.
Those are really good points. Thank you so much for enriching the discussion. I believe all of us have learned a lot, especially about IO psychology, the career prospect, what's going on, not only in Malaysia, but also in Indonesia and Philippines. And we are very appreciative to our 3 panelists to share with us. We really appreciate you taking out the time here. And we also want to thank all the participants here for taking your time out too. And so, can we take a picture together? Come, let's get our cameras on.
Yeah. They're so active also, asking questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think we can go on even for another hour.
I know.
Which is great. So it'd be great if all of you could give us some feedback.
Yeah,
So those the forms are all in the link. You can give us feedback, and if we really find there's a need, perhaps we can do something like something similar workshop so that we can address the needs and concerns of our next generation. Yeah, so just to a reminder, UTAR students, if you want your USD SS points, remember to sign out in the link. Okay, now we've got our cameras on. Look at all the pretty faces, all the handsome and pretty girls, handsome men and pretty girls. So our photographer will be taking the picture. We would need your cue. Oh, the photographer is so silent. So smile, put on your best face, put on your best smile.
Can the photographer please give us a cue, like
Yes.
counting?
Yes, 1 2 3 at least.
1 2 3 or 1 to 100.
Now it's like forever, get ready to put your anytime picture. Every 3 seconds, change your pose. No.
We need genuine smile, not fake smile.
Yeah. Oh, photographer finger is clicking very fast. We don't get to hear. We don't know when we are going to be taking a picture of.
I hope
It's not enough time to
my
turn
eye
the
is open. I hope I did not close my eye.
always look handsome, always look beautiful. No matter what angle, now it's only 2D. We don't get to see the whole picture. Okay, let's see, maybe a few more seconds. We're actually very glad that we can have so many participants. That's why the photo taking session is so long.
Oh yeah, many pages, isn't it? There's so many
Yeah.
pages.
I think at
Okay.
least 15 pages, and we really just want to remember everyone. And yeah,
So congratulations for having full house. I think it's limited, isn't it? It's not open because of the limited
yeah,
spaces at Zoom.
yeah, but I guess it's better than nothing. If it's physical, it'll be even harder to
Yeah,
get.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So
Yeah.
500 is very, very good number.
You
Yes.
could have limited on Zoom, then open the YouTube channel
Oh
so
yeah,
that others
Yeah,
can follow through YouTube.
yeah.
that's right.
Then I have to prepare
That's
more.
one
I was so
option.
nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the link will be sent later. You know, all of you or maybe some of your friends, you're interested and you missed this forum, but it will also be, some of you have already filled in the form and you've given us your details. We can contact you through that. So it's really great to have all of you, and we really want to thank you. And we also want to shout out to the UTAR committee, who has also helped put this together. They're doing all the background work. So thank you, Dr. Oh Xiaoling, Mr. Tan Sun An, Dr. Pong Pik Wan, Dr. Gan Su Wan, Ms. Sarah Rubini, and Ms. Teo Siao. We appreciate all your background work and helping us to put it together. And also not forgetting, we want to appreciate our partner universities. Yeah, I forgot to say in the beginning. So I want to extra shout louder to thank you very much, Partner University, for making it happen. Thank you so much, Dulase, right? Did I pronounce it right? Dulase University, and also the Universitas Bayangkara Jakarta Raya. We appreciate it.
How do we do virtual clapping? I do not know.
Oh,
Virtual clapping.
yeah, we also want to thank Dr. Alizi. You know, you represent us, Malaysia.
Yes, thank
Share
you.
so much from
Thank you.
UTAR.
My
Yes.
pleasure, my pleasure.
So I think with that, just a little reminder again in the chat box, please click on the links. There are actually two. Okay, one is the feedback. The other one is the sign out. Sign out is especially for UTAR students who want to claim some soft skill points. So once again, I want to thank our three panelists, Dr. Alizi, Dr. Wustari, Dr. Lauren. We really appreciate your presence here and that realm of information that you've shared to all of us here, especially in IO field, which is upcoming. Yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you, dear participants. And with that said, that's the end of our forum today. We hope to see you more next time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lawrence,
Thank you all.
and Dr. Liwan. Okay, see you sometimes.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you to the speakers and the back room, everyone who worked
That's
hard on
true.
this.
That's true. People behind the
moderator.
curtain, virtual curtain.
Yes.
Okay,
Have a good weekend,
you
everyone.
too. Okay, everyone, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, dear participants. All those you're from Indonesia,